Today I want to show you how to prepare and mix professional sounding vocals in any DAW just using the stock plugins that come with your digital audio workstation. So this is what we're going to start with.
Getting back in the game, I don't want to lose again.
And this is what we end up with.
Getting back in the game, I don't want to lose again.
I'm also going to show you how to create your own backing vocals and harmonies even if the singer didn't record them for you. And I'm going to go through every stage of that process, as I said, just using stock plugins. So let's hop into the DAW and get it done. Now this is a track I did with Natalie Conway for EDX's label Syrup Records, and I'm just going back into that project to play with the vocals for your example today. The first thing that we have to do is comp the vocals, and you are going to get several takes from a singer whenever you record, and comping is basically where you pick the best parts of each take and put them together into a composite or composition. So I've got three takes here from Natalie, who's a singer. The trouble is she's such a good singer, they're all really good takes, but
getting back in the game.
That's one.
Getting back in the game.
And this is another.
Getting back in the game.
So they're all very similar, but if you look closely, you can see they are actually different. So all comping is doing is selecting the best parts and then creating one main lead vocal. So you might take that one from that vocal track. You might take this bit from the second take, and then you might take this bit from the third take, for instance. And you do that suiting the vibe of the track, and it's very obvious to hear if there's a bad take, obviously. And then you'd make sure that's kind of blended together and sounds like it's one take, basically. So here would be the result. There you go.
Getting back in the game.
So that would be your main take, and that's what comping is. And you would do that for every part you've recorded. So the lead vocals, the backing vocals, and the harmonies as well. So the next thing to do is get rid of any excess noise out of the background of your take. So you can hear there's some background noise there. An easy way to do that is to use a gate, a noise gate. So let's just get one here from Ableton. And what the gate is doing is taking everything below the threshold that you set down to silence. And that way we can avoid the hiss that sometimes is in the background of your recordings. Okay, the next stage is auto-tune and just tweaking up any slightly dodgy or flat notes. I like to use third-party auto-tunes, especially great software such as Melodyne or Antara's auto-tune, but because I wanted to show you how to do it just with stock plugins, in Ableton, this is how you would do it.
Getting back in, getting back in.
So I think this one sounds slightly flat, so what I'm going to do is just select that part of it and then tweak it slightly with the... And if this is hard to do, what you can do is you can load up a simple piano sound and you can use that as a reference. So if we hit this piano sound...
Getting back in.
So we know that note should be this. Might be an octave up though. So now let's loop that note, play the piano, and then tweak her vocal with the tune. Nice, now it's in tune. And you might need to just blend the clip edges as well. And you can do this in any DAW, not just Ableton.
Getting back in the game.
And it's quite painstaking to do it this way, but it's so worth it because the end result is only going to be as good as the vocal you put in. And if you want me to do a lesson on how to record the perfect vocal take, let me know in the comments below. I'll give you a quick example of what it would look like if I was using a third-party plugin like Waves Auto-Tune or Antara's Auto-Tune. The first thing I'm going to do is put in the key of the track. Now I know it's D minor natural.
Getting back in the game.
And we don't want that really kind of T-Pain sound. We want to make it a bit smoother. And this is how.
I don't want to lose again. Hearts cannot be tamed. I don't want to lose again.
So once we've applied that to all of our tracks, we end up with this.
Getting back in the game. I don't want to lose again.
So once you've spent all the time tuning it perfectly, next is to make sure that the timing is correct. And the way that you do that is you can zoom in And you can, again, you can use the warp feature or flex time in Logic, and just make sure that you are getting all of the syllables lined up in the way that you want them to. So making sure all the takes are lining up. And sometimes you might want it to be slightly before another, just to give it a more of a real feel. You might not want it to be too perfectly in time. But you also don't want it to be too out of time, because then your mix is going to sound a bit messy and like the performance wasn't very good. Again, Complex Pro, if you are using Ableton, is the best to use this for this. Okay, so you've got the comping done, you've got the auto-tuning done, and you've got the timing done. Next is to make sure that the volumes are balanced out. Now, lots of people just throw compressors on, but I actually prefer to tweak the volume manually, because then it makes the compressors a lot smoother when you do apply them, which we will be doing soon. So you can do this a couple of ways. You can automate. You can use a third-party plugin like the Vocal Rider by Waves, or you can automate a trim plugin, like a volume plugin, basically. So any super quiet bits, you kind of bring them up as you want them, like this. And then you would do that across the whole mix.
I'm back in the game.
Obviously that's too much and it was an exaggeration, but that's how you would even out some of these levels. The other way in which you can do it is to, again, split the clips up like this, and then you can do it more visually and just try and make it match what's going on around it a bit. Obviously, if you're doing this with breaths and sibilants, then you want to be careful, because you don't want all the S's really loud. But in this example, you can see here, I'm just increasing the volume of some of these clips and then fading them into the clips around them, so it's a smoother finish result.
Getting back in the game.
Again, that's a bit of a...
Getting back in the game.
And then you have to do that across all of your comps. So again, lead vocals, backing vocals, harmonies. So now we've got the prepared vocals, it's time to actually mix them. But before we do that, I'm going to give you an example of what you can do to create your own harmonies if you haven't been provided with them. Now, in this instance, Natalie did provide me with harmonies, but let's just assume that she didn't, and all we had to work with was this lead vocal.
Getting back in the game.
So first you do the comping, you do the auto-tuning, and you make sure that it's as good a take as you can get. And then what you can do is this. I'm just going to minimize these so we don't get distracted. I'm going to duplicate that track, make sure that we have it warped. I'll just turn off the auto-tune. Again, if you're using Ableton, make sure it is on Complex Pro. And then we can split this into separate syllables, like that. And then we can actually tweak the transpose control to make our own harmonies. But it's easier if you listen to it with the lead vocal and maybe the instrumental of the tune that you're mixing anyway.
Get him back. Back.
Like so.
Get him back in.
It's not as good as having your own real harmonies recorded, but it's certainly a good workaround. A bit painstaking.
Get him back in the game. Get him back in the game.
And again, you do that throughout the whole track to create the harmonies. But if you want to make it a bit easier yourself, you can draw in the harmonies with MIDI or play them in. And then you can just use that as a template to tweak each syllable of the vocals until you've got your own lush vocals. And you can do that for 2 or 3 layers to create some really nice harmonies. The other thing you can do is thicken up the sound by creating a double track. So I've just duplicated the main lead here. I'm going to double click on it. I'm going to make sure it's warped, again, to Complex Pro if I'm using Ableton. And I'm just going to drop it down 1 octave or 12 semitones. I'm going to take the formants right down. And then this is the effect that it has. And let's bring it in quietly so you can hear the difference.
Get him back in the game. I don't wanna lose again. Get him back in.
So it sounds funny on its own, but it just adds a thickness to the vocals that you might not have had before.
Get him back in the game. I don't wanna lose again.
Now let's get to the mixing part of it. So the first thing I like to do, and again, I always start with the lead vocal because that's the main part of the track. The first thing I like to do is add a little bit of saturation. Now I would do this using the Oxford Inflator usually, which is a great little plugin.
Getting back in the game.
And it just adds some kind of higher harmonics to that. But we're just using stock plugins, so I'm just going to use the basic saturator. I'm going to choose one of the presets and let's see how it sounds.
Getting back in the game. Getting back in the game. Getting back in the game.
So it's just adding some volume, it's just adding a little bit of warmth, and that's the first stage to processing your dry vocals. So we've got the gate taking out the noise, we've got the auto tune, or if you're just using stock plugins, you could do that manually within the clip. And then we've got some saturation. Next is the EQ. So we're going to take out the frequencies we don't want. And usually that would be the sub frequencies, especially for a female vocal.
Getting back in the game. Getting back in the game.
And you can see where there might be some resonant peaks. So we'll take those down a bit as well.
Getting back in the game.
Just a bit because you don't want it to sound tinny.
Getting back in the game.
And if you are using premium plugins, the Soothe 2 is really good for this. It's a dynamic EQ.
Getting back in the game.
After that, we add some compression. And this is where we're going to start gelling the sounds together. So if we use the compressor and just make it sound a bit more even, I should really do more work on the automation of the volume here. And what you could do is actually use 2 vocal compressors in a row and use the first one just to take off the really hard transients.
I don't wanna lose again. I don't wanna lose again.
And make it kind of act quite quickly, but only a little bit.
I don't wanna lose again.
And then the second one will just smooth the whole thing out a little bit more.
I don't wanna lose again.
So if we apply the saturation, EQ, and the compression to each of the separate vocal channels, this is what we end up with.
Getting back in the game. I don't wanna lose again. Hearts cannot be tamed. I don't wanna lose again.
Now this is what I like to do next. I like to group all of the backing vocals together. Whoops, let's put the low down one as well in there.
Getting back in the game.
And this is so I can put them in their own space using EQ.
Getting back in the game.
So we might want them slightly less bright than the lead vocal,
Getting back in the game.
so they don't clash.
Getting back in the game.
And then the lead vocal, we can add an additive EQ, and I would usually use an analog modeled additive EQ to give it more character and they just sound better. But again, I'm just using the stock plugin, so let's just add an EQ8 and boost it slightly to bring out more of that airiness.
Getting back in the game.
And now we are going to actually group the lead vocals and the backing vocals together and put a very slight amount of compression on them with a glue compressor, just to gel them all together into one place.
Hearts cannot be tamed.
But again, we're just wanting to have a decibel or 2 of gain reduction, so we're not crushing the dynamics from the vocals. Next thing we're going to do is work on the stereo field. So all of these are in mono. Even though they're stereo waves, each side is identical, so each one is in mono. Now there are 2 ways that you can do this. I'd leave the deep vocal in the middle. And then I'd use a free plugin. So it's not a stock plugin, but it is free. The Ozone Imager 2 by Isotope. And you can just add stereo width like this. So it sounds like it's wider. So this is with the lead vocal.
Getting back in the game.
Now let's just pan these other hooks, these other ones, harmonies left and right. I've left this one off because I just wanted 2 harmonies in the end. But we can pan them left and right.
Getting back in the game. I don't wanna lose again. Hearts cannot be tamed.
One thing I'm going to do on the backing vocals is I'm actually going to slightly compress those together, and I'm actually going to add a little bit of chorus to give it some width.
Getting back in the game. I don't wanna lose again.
And now let's add some reverb and delay to give this real character. This is what I do on the auxiliary channels. So I've got two here. I've got a room reverb, which is tight and close, and then a hall reverb, which is a bit longer. But because it's a vocal, let's add some of that hall reverb. So first I'll do it to just the lead vocal.
Getting back in the game. I don't wanna lose again.
I'll just take away some of the brightness on that auxiliary channel. You can see I've got an EQ on there after the reverb.
Getting back in the game.
And I'm also going to add a compressor after that. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of sidechain signal from the dry lead. And that's so it ducks slightly when the dry lead is singing.
Getting back in the game.
And then the reverb comes back up when she stops singing.
Getting back in the game.
It's a subtle effect, but a pro tip there. So now let's add some of that exact same reverb to the backing vocal group.
Getting back in the game.
And then this is going to gel those vocals together.
Getting back in the game. I don't wanna lose again.
And now the last thing I'm going to do is add some echo. And again, this is just a delay unit on an auxiliary channel that I'm going to feed some of the lead vocals into, just the lead vocals.
Getting back in the game. I don't wanna lose again.
And because it's on an auxiliary channel, I put it to 100% wet so we don't double up the dry signal. And then I've just created a quarter note delay that pans back and forth by using ping pong, and added some reverb to it to wash it out a bit, make it sound big and airy.
Getting back in the game. I don't wanna lose again. Hearts cannot be tamed.
And I'm also going to add a little bit of that same echo to our piano, just to have it sounding like it's coming from the same place.
Hearts cannot be tamed. I don't wanna lose again. No, getting back in the game.
So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you want to learn how to use reverb in some creative ways, click on the link that is around this screen now, and I've created some really cool tips for you. If you've enjoyed this, please subscribe to my channel for tips like this each and every week. Share it with your friends, smash like, and you can download my essential mixing guide completely free below this video. Until next time, cheers and happy producing.